Yeah, I can see your question.
Okay. So this is example of the question.
Hmm.
You see how they said only available? So I'm wondering if it's just like you have to
Okay.
disable or
So first thing is, this is the username and password which they have given you. And the point one is set password and email as required and the only available enrollment options in the default enrollment policy for authenticator. So let's start with point one. So we have to go to default enrollment policy, which is under security authentication. Uh, okay, so you are on a classic tenant. So you have to go under security multi-factor. Multi-factor. Now under multi-factor, you have factor enrollment, where we have to allow email and what was the other factor? Could you go back to the question? One second, sorry. Set password and email. Okay. So if you go to this, is this the tenant which is given to you from Okta for performing this task, or this is your?
no. This is my own practice one. I'm supposed to have a tenant where let me see if I can find it.
All right. Keshav, do you have the new tenant, right?
Yeah.
So can you share your screen and log in with the new
Yes. Is it visible?
loading? Yeah.
Yeah, I was just registering the email.
Okay.
Mhm.
Just log into one of the org so we can
Yeah,
do that specific use
logged in.
case. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So this is the tenant which you'll be getting in the examination. This is an OIE tenant, which stands for Okta Identity Engine. It's a newer version of the tenant which you are using. So if you go to security authenticator,
I
Okay.
can't wait. Oh, never mind. I can see it.
okay. So the first thing which you have to make sure that email and password is listed here as active. Now you need to go to the next tab, which says enrollment. And here they're asking us to make sure that password and email are the only required and available factor for a user to enroll, no other factor, right? So click on edit and we need to disable any other factor which is listed here. So Okta Verify would be disabled. Email and password would be a required factor. So change that to required and update the policy. So that is point one. Let's
Mhm.
go to the next point. So Keshav, can you bring in the question?
Yeah.
Which use case was that? No, I
Uh,
go to the four or three.
four. It was three or four.
Okay, yeah, yeah, in the use case three. So
So
use
this,
case three, first point is that email as required in the default enrollment policy. I think this
so
question is a little bit different than the question which you
yeah,
had. So,
the actual exam says only
hmm. Can
the
you
one that
put that screenshot if you have in the chat
sure.
once? Sure.
Yeah.
So here in this test exam, it says it does not say only, but it has exact same requirement. Then in the second point, it says in the global session policy, add a new rule to the default policy to establish the user session with the password. Name the new rule as password. And no, this
This is the exact question I got actually in the main exam.
no, this is in the practice, right? Not in the real exam.
This is not the real exam. This is the practice. But in real exam, I got this one only,
Okay.
but with a different name or something. That's it. It's the
Okay,
same thing.
so let's see. So point two is, okay, it's the same question if you can see, right? It's just the words are different. It also says in the global session policy, add a new rule to the default policy, name the new rule as session rule, and enable the establish the user session with a password. So we'll go to the global session policy. So go back to your Okta tenant, click on security global session policy, go to the default policy and add rule. Name this as session rule.
With session password rule.
No, that is in the practice. Let's name it as session rule for now.
Okay, okay, okay.
Okay. So now the requirement is only to let the user establish a session with a password. So no other condition has to be touched. The only condition which we have to check here is if you scroll down, you have established a little bit up, then you have this option called establish the user session with and select a password and scroll down and click on OK. Say create rule. Now this rule is created. So your users would be allowed to create an Okta global session with just a password. Now in the point three, you have defined an authentication policy that requires password and email if the group is contractor and is trying to access CERT app application. Name the policy, contractor policy, and contractor rule. Enable the following settings in the contractor rule. Okay, so first of all, we need to create a dummy application. So I think in your certification, you had a task to create the CERT app. Currently, we are not at that task. So we'll create a dummy app called CERT app. So go to your Okta. Yeah, go to application. Click on browse app catalog. Search for bookmark. This step you don't have to follow in the exam because you will already have an app called CERT app. So click on bookmark, add integration. Yeah, URL you can put anything like google.com, anything is fine. You have to use HTTPS. Click on run. So we have the CERT. No, rename this as CERT app. Instead of go to general and rename this as CERT app. C uppercase or lowercase one word. No, no space. Okay, save. Okay, now we need a group, which is contractor. So go to directory group and create a group called contractor. I believe this will also pre-exist as one of your tasks in the examination. Contractor, save. Okay. Now for this application which we have created, we need to define an authentication policy. So an authentication policy will automatically be defined. So go to that application which you created. Now go to the application which you created. The application, the bookmark application which you created. Yes, the CERT app, and go to the sign on tab to see which policy, authentication policy is getting applied. And the policy which is applied to this application is any two factor. So click on view policy details. So either we can modify this policy or as the task says, we can create our own authentication policy. So I would go ahead with creating our own authentication policy. Otherwise, they might score you zero if you modify this policy. So go back to the security authentication policies and click on add policy. You can name the policy as contractor policy There will be space, but it is fine for now. And now click on add rule. So a catch-all rule will exist in all the policies which you create, which allows the user to fall back to catch-all rule if your the rule which you're creating does not match. So here they're asking us to create a contractor rule. So create a contractor rule.
Contractor.
And rule name is contractor rule.
Yeah.
Okay, now they are asking that this rule will only be applicable to the user if user is in the group contractor. So here, if you see the second condition, users group membership include any group, do a drop down and select a group. Yeah, at least one of the following group and type the group name contractor. Okay, now the next task in this is password and email should be required to do the authentication. So we have to scroll down. Yeah, scroll down here. Now it says password plus another factor, and it says disallow specific authentication method, and email is disallowed. You can select allow specific authentication method and select email. Yeah, and just click outside. So now password and email are required. Now the next condition in this is prompt for password authentication when Okta global session does not exist. So for the first one, prompt for password authentication, select the last option. And the second condition is prompt for all of the factor every time the user signs in, which is already selected. Now click on save. So this third point is also completed. Now in the fourth point, it says if you can use a personal email address to receive the email verification code. Otherwise, if you are taking this exam on a device that is locked down, you may have to use a work email address. Edit Jeremy's Okta profile and set his primary email to the email address that you're using for this step. So basically, the Jeremy user which you have created in previous task, you have to modify his profile and set it to a email value where you can accept a verification code. And after that, log in as Jeremy to verify that you're prompted for email verification upon clicking the Cert app from the Okta dashboard. So so create a user called Jeremy. Jeremy Steele
Jeremy.
and Steele, Steel, last name, not the first name. And username, put your email address. You can use that one.
Hmm?
You can use Ask Me Anything.
Okay, okay.
Now it is keshav.kumar.
Oh, yes, yes.
At askmeandry.com. And now I will set the password unchange yeah, and set a password on this account. Now assign this user to the contractor group and contractor group to the Cert app application. Click on done at the top. Now assign application to this group, the Cert app which we created. Click on done. Click on done.
Done.
Now log out from this user.admin and log in as keshav.kumar1. Do the password. Okay, now you're logged into Okta. So we have proved the point number two, that in order to log into Okta, we just need a password. Now we are going to prove the point number three by clicking on Cert app, which should require us to do an email verification. So click on Cert app.
Just we didn't change the.
Okay. You have to log out and log in once again as an admin. We missed one step. The new authentication policy which we created, we need to assign that policy to the cert application. So that was our mistake. So even if you have done all of these, and if you miss this one step, it will be zero for you because eventually the use case was not completed.
Hmm.
So that's why you have to verify that it is prompting for the email as it says in the task. So if you not, then you have done some configuration or it is incomplete configuration. You review it before you submit the
Yeah,
exam, like we are doing it
It
now.
it does prompt me for the email. It does work, so that's why I was confused.
So did you do all of these steps in the exam, which we are doing it here?
Yes, sir.
Now then you shouldn't be getting zero because if this is all the task you require to do.
Mm-hmm. I don't know. I was asking you a question. So you said you just disable Okta Verify if it says only, right? Do you
Yes.
have to change anything else in the authenticators tab?
No, you just need to modify the default policy and disable
Mm-hmm.
any other factors which are available other than email and password.
Okay. Because I've
Go.
seen some
Mhm.
people say that you might have to delete the Okta Verify from the list of
No,
authenticators available.
no, you do not need to delete.
Okay.
Go to Cert app. Yeah, go to sign on and scroll down. Click on edit on the user authentication and change the policy from any two-factor to that contractor policy. Save and log out and log in as Keshav Kumar one.
Do you have to do this step from applications or can you do it from authentication policy?
You can do it from authentication policy.
Okay.
Yeah, click on Cert app. So as you can see, it now prompts you for email verification. Click on send me an email. No, first click on send me an
Right.
email. And then you get email verification code.
I
It
think
says,
not this
hold on,
one.
do not says, yeah. So now you have verification code. Click on sign in and you're done. That's it.
Okay.
So this is what it is needed. Uh, Now, if you have done all of these steps exactly, so first in the enrollment policy, only have password and email as required, and other any other factor which is there as disabled. Then in the global session policy, in the default policy, create a rule only with establish the user session with a password. And then in the third, create an authentication policy with name, contractor policy, and a rule within that policy, contractor rule, and where password and email should be the only required factor to authenticate to that app, and prompt for password when global session does not exist, and prompt for authenticator like email every time. And then you have to change the email address on Jeremy's profile to your personal email address or your work email address, and then try to log in as Jeremy and click on Cert app once you log into our dashboard and prove that email validation is working.